The crowd froze as the German Shepherd lunged forward, barking wildly at a pregnant woman near the airport gates. She clutched her belly, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Please make him stop," she pleaded, voice trembling. Security rushed in as passengers gasped and panic rippled through the terminal. "Ma'am, stay where you are," shouted Officer Daniel Reyes, struggling to hold back his K9 partner Kai. The woman's face turned ghostly pale. "What's happening? Why is he barking at me? I haven't done anything." But Kai didn't stop. His barks grew more frantic, more desperate, like he'd just uncovered something horrifying. Moments later, when the truth was finally revealed, it left everyone stunned. What Kai uncovered wasn't a weapon or a bomb. It was a heart-stopping scam, one no human could have detected. And what lay hidden beneath that calm smile would change airport security forever. Before we dive in, make sure to hit like, subscribe, and tap the bell so you never miss a story that reveals the truth hiding in plain sight. And hey, I love knowing where you're watching from. Drop your country name in the comments. Last week, we had viewers from 73 countries. Will you be number 74? The airport buzzed with the rhythm of routine life. The click of heels, the distant hum of conveyor belts, the low chatter of travelers waiting to board. Morning sunlight streamed through the glass walls, glinting off polished floors and reflecting on endless rows of luggage trolleys. Officer Daniel Reyes adjusted his cap, scanning the bustling terminal with trained precision. To most people, this was just another ordinary day. But for Daniel, every minute in uniform meant vigilance, because danger often hid behind the most innocent faces. Beside him trotted his loyal K9 partner, Kai, a massive German Shepherd with alert amber eyes and a calm authority that turned heads. Kai's tail swayed rhythmically as he moved, every sense alive and tuned to the pulse of the crowd. To Daniel, he wasn't just a working dog. He was family. They'd been partners for 5 years, a bond forged through midnight raids, bomb threats, and long hours of silent understanding. Daniel knelt briefly, patting Kai's neck. "Easy, boy. Just another patrol," he murmured. The dog's ears twitched as if acknowledging his handler's reassurance. Kai suddenly paused mid-stride, nose twitching. Daniel noticed but brushed it off. Dogs caught all sorts of scents in airports. Still, a flicker of unease tugged at him. He'd learned to trust Kai's instincts. They'd saved lives before. He rose and glanced around. Families checking tickets, tourists snapping selfies, business people clutching coffee cups. Nothing unusual. Yet Kai's posture stiffened again, head tilting toward the far end of the terminal where passengers from the latest flight streamed in. Daniel frowned. "What is it, partner?" he whispered. Kai gave a low grunt, eyes narrowing. Then, as quickly as the tension appeared, Kai relaxed, tail flicking once. Daniel exhaled, chuckling softly. "You're keeping me on edge, huh?" He couldn't have known. Within minutes, that quiet, ordinary morning would erupt into chaos. Kai's next reaction wouldn't just stop the crowd, it would expose a secret no one in that terminal was ready to face. Daniel checked his watch. 9:47 a.m. The peak rush had begun. Streams of passengers flowed through security checkpoints like tides, their conversations blending into a steady hum. Kai walked calmly at his side, nose lowered, sniffing the air with quiet precision. The K9's discipline always impressed Daniel. No matter how loud or chaotic things got, Kai never lost focus. Then amid the blur of movement, something shifted. A woman entered through the glass doors, her presence oddly distinct. She was tall, with light hair cascading over a beige trench coat, dark jeans hugging her legs, and a white blouse stretched over a heavily pregnant belly. In each hand, she carried a brown shopping bag, their crisp paper edges swaying with every step. Sunglasses concealed her eyes, but her lips were pressed tight, as though she were holding her breath. Daniel's gaze followed her subconsciously. Something about her demeanor didn't match the casual rhythm of the crowd. Most people glanced around or hurried toward check-in counters. But she moved differently, slow, deliberate, almost rehearsed. Kai noticed too. His head lifted, nostrils flared once, twice, then his body stiffened. Daniel stopped walking. "Easy, Kai," he murmured, tugging the leash gently. But the dog didn't budge. Ears locked forward, eyes fixed on the woman like a radar honing in on a signal only he could sense. The woman approached the security line, adjusting her coat nervously. The faint tremor in her hands caught Daniel's attention. He felt the first drop of suspicion settle in his stomach. "Do you see something, buddy?" he whispered. Kai gave a quiet growl, low, restrained, but unmistakable. Daniel's heartbeat quickened. Years on the force had taught him that Kai never reacted without reason. Whether it was explosives, narcotics, or hidden danger, the dog's instincts were razor sharp. But this was different. The woman looked harmless, vulnerable even. As she handed her boarding pass to the officer at the gate, Kai let out a sharp bark. Heads turned instantly. The woman froze mid-motion, her face paling. Her grip tightened on the bag's knuckles whitening. Passengers murmured, glancing between her and the agitated K9. The air thickened with curiosity and unease. Daniel felt a chill crawl up his spine. Something wasn't right. He could feel it. He steadied his partner, eyes never leaving the woman. "All right, lady," he muttered under his breath. "Who exactly are you?" The air inside the terminal changed in an instant. Kai's bark shattered the calm like glass. Loud, sharp, commanding. Heads turned. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. The echo of his growl rolled through the hall, bouncing off steel pillars and glass panels. "Kai, heel!" Daniel commanded, his voice firm but calm. But the canine didn't obey. Instead, Kai lunged forward, muscles coiled, eyes blazing with intensity. The leash strained in Daniel's grip, his boots skidding slightly on the polished floor. Passengers gasped, stumbling back, clutching their luggage and children. As the barking grew more frantic, the pregnant woman froze in place. "Please make him stop," she cried out, her voice trembling. Her shopping bags rustled as she instinctively stepped back, pressing one hand to her belly, the other raised defensively. Her face turned pale beneath the airport lights. Daniel's pulse pounded in his ears. He'd seen Kai in pursuit mode, in bomb searches, in dangerous raids, but never like this. There was desperation in the dog's bark, a kind of urgency that didn't fit the usual signals of aggression or alert. It was as if Kai was warning them, screaming at them to see something they couldn't. Another officer yelled, moving closer to the scene. Two security agents hurried forward, hands outstretched, trying to calm the crowd now pressing backward toward the check-in area. The woman shook her head violently. "I haven't done anything wrong," she insisted, her voice breaking. "Please, I just want to board my flight." Tears welled in her eyes as Kai continued barking, his claws scraping the floor, his focus locked entirely on her. Daniel tightened his grip on the leash. "Kai, easy," he repeated, crouching low, his eyes scanning the woman, her movements, her bags, her posture. He noticed how she clutched her belly just a little too tightly, like she was guarding something. And then there was the faint metallic sound that came when one of the shopping bags brushed her knee. Something clicked in his mind. He motioned to his fellow officer. "We need to check her, now." The woman backed away, panic flashing across her face. "No, you can't, I'm pregnant," she cried, turning as if to flee. Kai barked again, louder, sharper, and this time it wasn't just a warning. He growled deep, pulling so hard that the leash slipped slightly from Daniel's grasp. The dog lunged forward, stopping just short of the woman, his nose almost touching the air near her stomach. His entire body trembled with intensity. Passengers gasped. A baby cried somewhere in the crowd. The tension was suffocating. Daniel steadied himself, heart racing. Whatever Kai was sensing wasn't ordinary, and in that moment he made the call that would change everything. "Ma'am," he said, voice low but commanding, "we're taking you in for secondary screening now." The woman's lips parted in shock. But before she could protest, two officers stepped forward. The uneasy calm of the airport had been replaced by fear, whispers and uncertainty, and Kai, still growling softly, had just set off a chain of events no one could have imagined. The murmurs in the terminal grew louder as the officers closed in. The pregnant woman stood frozen near the metal detector, her breathing shallow, her trembling hands clutching the paper bags like they were her only shield. Behind her, passengers began recording with their phones, their whispers rippling through the hall like wildfire. Officer Daniel stepped forward, keeping his tone calm but firm. "Ma'am, I need you to stay still," he said, one hand tightening around Kai's leash. The German shepherd's hackles stood on end, his gaze fixed unwaveringly on the woman's midsection. Each growl from his throat sounded more urgent than the last, not aggressive but warning. "I told you I haven't done anything wrong," she cried, panic rising in her voice. "He's scaring me." Her eyes darted around desperately, looking for sympathy from the growing crowd. "I'm pregnant. Please, can't you see that?" Daniel's jaw tensed. He'd heard fear before, genuine fear. But there was something off about hers. Too controlled, too measured. Still, protocol demanded caution. "We understand, ma'am," he said evenly. "But for your safety and everyone else's, we need to do a quick screening." Two nearby officers stepped in to assist. One tried to calm her with a gentle tone. "We just need to run a check, okay? It'll only take a minute." The woman hesitated, her knuckles whitening around the paper bags. One of them bent slightly under her grip, revealing a flash of silver foil through the gap. Daniel's sharp eyes caught it instantly. He felt his pulse jump. "Hold on," he said. "What's in the bag?" "It's just baby things," she blurted out too quickly. "Diapers, bottles. Please, you're embarrassing me." Before Daniel could respond, Kai suddenly barked again. A single, deep, explosive sound that cut through the noise. The woman flinched violently, almost dropping the bag. That was it. Daniel's instinct screamed louder than the crowd. "Take her to secondary screening now." The crowd slowly parted as two uniformed officers escorted the pregnant woman away. Her steps were unsteady, her lips trembling as she repeated, "I haven't done anything wrong." The paper bag she carried swung slightly, one handle tearing under the pressure of her grip. Behind her, Kai's growls faded into low whines that echoed down the terminal hall. Officer Daniel followed at a distance, one hand resting on the leash, feeling every vibration of tension running through his canine partner. "Easy, boy," he whispered. But Kai's body language didn't relax. His ears remained pinned forward, his gaze fixed on the retreating woman like a hunter refusing to lose sight of his mark. The officers led her into a small private security room tucked behind the checkpoint, a space rarely used except for special cases. The fluorescent light buzzed overhead, casting a sterile glow on the white walls. A security scanner stood ready, humming quietly, its green lights blinking like a heartbeat. "Please," the woman pleaded as they guided her to sit. "I don't understand what's happening. I just want to go home." Her voice cracked, genuine fear bleeding through, or so it seemed. One of the female officers knelt beside her, voice gentle. "We just need to run a quick screening." "All right, it's for your safety too." Daniel stood outside the glass window watching. Kai paced restlessly, tail rigid, eyes sharp. Every few seconds he let out a low whine and pawed at the door. His unease was contagious. Daniel could feel it tightening his chest. Inside, the woman rubbed her belly in small circles, murmuring under her breath. Sweat glistened on her forehead. "I'm not feeling well," she said weakly. "Please, I need to sit." The officers exchanged uncertain looks. "We'll be done soon," one reassured. Kai barked once, short, abrupt, almost like a warning. Daniel's heart skipped a beat. The door to the private screening room clicked shut, sealing the woman inside with two officers and a female medical screener. Outside, through the observation glass, Daniel stood with Kai at his side, both watching intently. The air in the corridor felt heavy, like the silence before a thunderstorm. "She looks terrified," said Officer Perez, arms crossed. "You sure this isn't just a false alarm?" Daniel didn't take his eyes off Kai. The German Shepherd was pacing back and forth, tail low, muscles taut, eyes never leaving the glass. "Kai doesn't false alarm," Daniel replied quietly. "Not once in 5 years," Perez shrugged. "Still, she's pregnant. You saw the way she clutched her stomach. What if he just got spooked by the smell of medication or something?" Daniel frowned. He's trained to recognize over 50 different scents. Narcotics, explosives, accelerants, even decaying tissue. Whatever he's reacting to, it's not random. He glanced through the glass again. Inside, the woman sat slumped in the chair, breathing heavily, murmuring to herself. Her shopping bags rested on the floor, one half open, revealing neatly folded baby clothes and a teddy bear. "She looks harmless," said the female screener softly. "Let's just get this over with." They began by examining her belongings. Each item was scanned and swabbed. Nothing unusual showed up. The officers exchanged uneasy looks. Perez muttered under his breath, "Maybe your dog just had a bad morning." Daniel's jaw tightened. He's not wrong. He senses things we can't. If he's reacting this way, something's there. Kai suddenly whined again, pawing at the door, nose pressed to the gap at the bottom. Daniel crouched beside him. "What is it, boy?" The dog's ears flicked back, body trembling. He gave a soft, frustrated bark, one that Daniel recognized from field operations. That bark meant distress, urgency, danger. Inside, the woman wiped her forehead, muttering that she felt dizzy. The screener offered her water, but her shaking hand couldn't hold the cup steady. Her breathing grew shallow, her shoulders tense. Daniel's instincts flared. We need to get medical on standby, he said suddenly. Perez raised an eyebrow. You think she's faking? I think she's hiding something, Daniel replied, his voice low. And Kai knows it. The other officer opened his mouth to respond, but before a word left his lips, the woman gasped sharply and doubled over, clutching her stomach in agony. Kai barked violently, slamming his paw against the door. Daniel's blood ran cold. Call medical now. Whatever this was, it wasn't normal pregnancy pain. It was the moment Kai had been warning them about all along. The woman's scream sliced through the silence like a blade. Every officer in the room froze. Her body jerked forward, hands clutching her swollen belly, eyes wide with terror. Something's wrong, she gasped, her voice trembling. Oh God, it hurts. Please help me. The female screener sprang into action, kneeling beside her. Stay with me, ma'am. Try to breathe slowly. She turned to the others. Get medical now. Daniel was already moving. He pushed open the door, Kai lunging forward beside him, whining anxiously. The sight that met him froze him in place. The woman slumped in the chair, face drenched in sweat, trembling uncontrollably. Her breaths came out in ragged bursts, each one shorter than the last. Perez grabbed the radio. Medical team to Gate C, immediate response. Kai's usual composure shattered. He barked repeatedly, circling the woman, his nose twitching wildly. He wasn't growling anymore, his movements were frantic, protective. He sniffed the air near her abdomen, then backed away with a whine, tail low, ears pinned. Daniel, the screener cried, her pulse is irregular. Daniel knelt beside her. Ma'am, can you hear me? She looked at him through tear-filled eyes. It's not supposed to happen yet, she whispered. Her voice cracked, every word a struggle. 7 months? I still had time. What do you mean? Daniel asked, confusion flooding his mind. Is it labor? She shook her head violently. No, it's not labor. Something's wrong inside. Her voice faded into a sob. Please, save my baby. The ambulance bay outside the terminal was a blur of flashing lights and shouting voices. Paramedics worked frantically, securing the woman onto the stretcher, connecting IV lines, monitoring her failing pulse. The faint wail of sirens echoed through the glass walls of the airport. But amid the chaos, one sound cut sharper than all others, Kai's relentless barking. Daniel gripped the leash tightly. Easy, boy. She's in good hands now. But Kai wouldn't calm. His body trembled with intensity, nose pointed straight at the ambulance, tail stiff as a board. It wasn't aggression. It was desperation. The lead paramedic climbed into the back of the vehicle. We're heading to Central General. Suspected premature labor, possible internal trauma. Daniel nodded, trying to steady himself. Everything had escalated too fast. One moment they were detaining a suspicious passenger. The next it was a life-or-death emergency. But still something nagged at him. Kai had sensed danger before any human had, and even now the dog refused to look away from the woman. As the ambulance doors began to close, Kai let out a guttural bark and lunged forward, pulling the leash so hard it nearly slipped from Daniel's grip. Kai, stop! He shouted. The dog whined loudly, eyes fixed on the woman's midsection. The paramedic paused mid-step. What's wrong with him? Daniel swallowed. He's not wrong. That's what worries me. Kai's nose pressed against the door just as it shut. He barked again, sharp, insistent, then circled the vehicle, sniffing the tires, the ground, even the trail the woman's stretcher had left behind. He growled softly, low and uneasy. Perez jogged up beside Daniel. He's still at it? What's he picking up? I don't know, Daniel admitted. But it's not normal. He's not reacting to fear or pain, and he's tracking something. Daniel's gaze drifted to the paper bag still in his hand, the one Kai had fixated on earlier. He reached inside and pulled out a small metallic patch sewn into the lining. Now reflecting faintly under the harsh ambulance lights, Kai immediately barked, plunging toward it, nose twitching violently. Daniel's pulse quickened. There's something here, he murmured. Something he recognizes. Before Perez could respond, the ambulance engine roared to life. Kai howled, not out of aggression but alarm. His instincts screamed louder than words ever could. Daniel watched the flashing lights vanish into the night and whispered under his breath, "Whatever's happening. It's not over yet." Back inside the airport security control room, Daniel placed the woman's paper bag on the stainless steel table. The echo of the ambulance siren had faded into the distance, leaving behind an uneasy silence that felt heavier than before. Kai stood beside him, Tail rigid, ears pinned forward, nose twitching toward the bag like a compass locked onto danger. Perez crossed his arms. You really think there's something in there? Daniel nodded slowly. Kai doesn't react like that over nothing. The bag looked harmless enough, slightly crumpled, smeared with fingerprints, the logo of a baby boutique printed across the front. But as Daniel began removing the contents one by one, folded baby clothes, tiny socks, a pacifier still in its wrapper, Kai's low growl returned. The sound was deep, restrained, but full of warning. Daniel glanced at him. What is it, boy?
What do you smell?
Kai stepped closer, sniffing the air, then fixated on a pink baby blanket tucked at the bottom. Daniel lifted it carefully, revealing a small pouch sewn inside the fabric seam. His heart skipped. Perez, get the UV scanner. Perez frowned but obeyed. Under the violet glow, a faint residue shimmered along the inner stitching, a thin layer of powder that caught the light. Daniel's stomach turned. That's not baby powder, he muttered. Perez leaned closer. Could be narcotics, he whispered. Hidden inside the blanket. Daniel's expression hardened. That would explain why she panicked. But Kai's focus wasn't just on the bag. It was on her. Daniel examined the metallic patch he'd found earlier, now placed on the table beside the blanket. It was flat, oval-shaped, and coated with a thin plastic film. Kai barked once, loud and certain. Perez took a step back. You think she was smuggling something inside her? Daniel didn't answer, but the thought chilled him. She wasn't just hiding drugs, he said quietly. She was carrying them. Kai gave a low growl again, circling the table, nose brushing over the bag, the patch, and finally back toward the door where the ambulance had gone. His body language said what words couldn't. The threat wasn't over. Daniel looked at his partner, realization dawning like a slow storm. You're telling me there's more, he whispered. Kai whined softly, eyes fixed on the distance, and deep down, Daniel knew the real discovery was still waiting to be uncovered at the hospital. The ambulance screeched into the emergency bay of Central General Hospital. The sliding doors burst open as paramedics rushed the stretcher inside. Female, late 20s, 7 months pregnant, severe abdominal pain, pulse unstable. One of them shouted. Doctors and nurses flooded the corridor, wheeling her into an examination room. The woman's cries echoed down the hallway, desperate and broken. Please save my baby, she sobbed, clutching at the paramedic's sleeve before another wave of pain tore through her. Daniel and Kai arrived moments later, both breathless. The officer flashed his badge. K9 unit, I need updates on the woman brought in from Gate C. The nurse at the counter gave a quick nod. Room 3 trauma wing. Daniel hurried through the corridor, Kai pacing anxiously beside him. He could still smell the faint trace of airport disinfectant mixed with something else, something metallic, synthetic. Kai's nose twitched. His body stayed tense. Whatever he'd detected before was still here. Through the glass window of the trauma room, Daniel watched the medical team work. The woman lay pale and trembling under the bright white lights, electrodes clinging to her chest, an oxygen mask covering her face. A doctor, tall with graying hair and a focused gaze, moved a portable ultrasound probe across her swollen belly. Daniel waited, heart pounding. The monitor flickered with black and white static. Then silence. The doctor frowned. He adjusted the probe, eyes narrowing. That's unusual, he murmured. The nurse leaned closer. What is it? He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he shifted angles, pressing the device slightly harder. The outline on the screen was wrong, jagged, uneven. Not the smooth, rounded curve of a baby's body. Something metallic reflected faintly inside. The doctor's face paled. This isn't normal fetal movement, he said quietly. There's something artificial here. Daniel stepped inside. Doctor, what are you saying? The man turned, lowering his voice. There's a foreign object inside the abdominal cavity. It looks like a shell casing, or part of a sealed container. Kai whined, his body tense as if confirming it. The nurse gasped. You mean, she's not actually pregnant? The doctor hesitated. There's a structure imitating a fetus, but it's synthetic. Hollow compartments. He straightened, eyes widening. Get the surgical team ready. We need to remove this, now. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. She's carrying something. That's what Kai sensed. Moments later, the alarm sounded. Nurses rushed in, pushing the gurney toward the operating room. The woman's head rolled weakly to the side, eyes glassy with fear. Please, she whispered hoarsely. I didn't want to do it. Daniel followed as far as the double doors would allow. Beyond the sterile glass, surgeons gathered around the table, their movements quick and deliberate. Kai sat by the door, silent now, watching. His breathing was steady, but his eyes were locked on the operating light. The place where the truth was about to be uncovered. And then, for the first time since the airport, Daniel understood the look in his partner's eyes. Kai hadn't been alerting to danger. He'd been trying to save her, before the deadly secret inside her did its job. The red surgery in progress light above the door glowed like a warning sign. Daniel stood motionless in the hospital corridor, hands clenched, the rhythmic click of his boots echoing faintly on the tile floor. Kai sat beside him, still in alert, ears twitching every time a monitor beeped beyond the closed doors. Minutes dragged into hours. Nurses rushed past, voices low but urgent. Daniel couldn't shake the image of the woman's pale face, her trembling hands clutching her stomach. She wasn't a villain, at least not the kind he was used to seeing. There had been fear in her eyes, but also something else. Guilt. The door finally swung open. The surgeon stepped out, removing his gloves, his expression grave. "Officer Reyes?" Daniel straightened immediately. "That's me. What did you find?" The doctor hesitated before speaking, as if weighing the words carefully. "It wasn't a pregnancy," he said at last. Her abdomen contained a hollow silicone structure shaped like a uterus, connected to a mechanical pump designed to simulate a fetal heartbeat. Daniel's stomach twisted. "You're saying she was never pregnant?" "Not even close," the doctor confirmed grimly. The device contained multiple sealed capsules, micro compartments layered within the fake abdominal wall. "We found over a dozen hidden containers." "Containers of what?" Daniel asked, already dreading the answer. The doctor exchanged a glance with the nurse beside him. "Liquid narcotics, highly concentrated, enough to supply a trafficking ring for months." Daniel stared at the floor, his fists tightening. The pieces fell together with brutal clarity. The expensive clothes, the trembling hands, the overplayed panic. It wasn't random. It was rehearsed. She was part of a smuggling operation, Daniel said quietly, pretending to be pregnant to bypass full body scans. Kai must have picked up the scent through the silicone barrier. The doctor nodded. If your dog hadn't reacted when he did, she might not have survived the rupture. One of the compartments inside the prosthetic had begun to leak. That's what caused her collapse. The chemical was toxic. If it had spread further, it would have killed her within minutes. Daniel exhaled slowly, running a hand down Kai's back. "You saved her life, buddy," he murmured. Kai looked up at him with steady eyes, tail still. The nurse stepped forward. "There's something else. She's been asking for you." Daniel followed her into the recovery room. The woman lay weakly on the bed, her skin pale but her breathing steady. Her eyes fluttered open as he approached. "I didn't want to do it," she whispered. "They promised money, said it was just medicine, but when I realized what it really was, it was too late." Tears streaked down her cheeks. "They threatened my family." Daniel's expression softened. "You're lucky to be alive." Her gaze shifted to Kai lying by the door. "He knew," she said faintly. "He knew before anyone else." Daniel nodded. "He always does." As he stepped out of the room, the detective in him was already piecing together the next move. This wasn't just one woman. It was a system, a network using innocence as a disguise. And thanks to Kai, the first link in that chain had just been broken. The truth was terrifying, but it was only the beginning.
The morning sun filtered weakly through the hospital blinds. When Daniel returned to the recovery room, the world outside was waking up, but inside, time felt suspended, heavy with unspoken truth. The woman lay propped against her pillow, her face pale, eyes red-rimmed from tears. Her voice was faint but steady when she spoke. "I didn't want to do it," she said again, her fingers clutching the thin blanket. "They told me if I didn't go through with it, they'd hurt my son." Daniel pulled up a chair beside her. "You have a child?" She nodded, her lips trembling. "He's 6. They said he'd be safe if I carried their package. I thought it was medicine at first, something harmless, but then I heard them talking. They were using women like me, single mothers, refugees, anyone desperate enough to smuggle liquid narcotics inside fake pregnancies." Her voice cracked. "They had doctors, handlers, even fake passports. I tried to back out, but they showed me pictures of my son walking home from school. I had no choice. Daniel listened silently, anger and pity warring inside him. He'd seen criminals lie, cry, and beg before him, but this wasn't that. This was a woman trapped in a web spun by monsters who preyed on desperation. "Do you know their names?" he asked quietly. She hesitated, then nodded. "The main one goes by Julian. He runs a private courier company that ships medical supplies through major airports. I was supposed to meet one of his men at the gate after landing hand over the fake belly, collect my money, and disappear." She swallowed hard. "They have others, more women on different flights." Daniel's heart raced. "When?" "Today," she whispered. "2 of them are flying in this afternoon." That was all he needed to hear. Within minutes, he was on the radio with Airport Command. "This is Officer Daniel Reyes, K9 Unit, Code Viper. Possible trafficking operation in progress. Initiate full lockdown on incoming flights from Dubai and Lisbon. Subject connected to smuggling ring under the alias Julian." Hours later, chaos erupted once again inside the airport, but this time the officers were ready. As the crowd of passengers poured into customs, Kai was already on the line, nose twitching, eyes locked on every movement. Then he froze, tail stiff. A woman in a long black coat and oversized scarf stepped through security, her hand resting protectively on her stomach. Kai barked once, low, sharp, decisive. Daniel moved instantly. "K9, alert, detain her now." Officers swarmed the area. The woman panicked, trying to flee, but a quick tackle brought her down. When they removed the prosthetic belly, the sight beneath confirmed everything. Another false pregnancy. Another silicone womb filled with narcotics. Moments later, airport security intercepted a man in a dark suit waiting near the gate exit. Inside his briefcase were forged IDs, tickets, and a satellite phone linked to a number under the name Julian Hale. Daniel watched as the man was led away in cuffs. Kai sat proudly at his side, chest rising and falling steadily. "You did it again, partner," Daniel whispered. "You stopped them all." Kai gave a soft whine, leaning his head against Daniel's leg. The truth had been terrifying, but it was over. And once again, a dog's loyalty had saved countless innocent lives. Night had fallen by the time the last report was filed. The airport lights shimmered across the wet tarmac outside, reflecting like 1,000 tired memories. Daniel sat on the concrete steps near the terminal exit, his uniform wrinkled, his mind finally slowing after a day that had felt like a lifetime. Beside him, Kai lay stretched out, head resting on his paws, his chest rising and falling in a steady rhythm. For hours, adrenaline had carried Daniel through chaos. The ambulance, the arrests, the paperwork. But now, sitting in the quiet hum of the night, the weight of it all began to settle. He looked down at Kai, who was still alert despite the long day. The dog's amber eyes caught the faint glow from the terminal lights, gleaming like 2 tiny embers of focus. Daniel reached down, running his hand gently over Kai's fur. "You were incredible today," he said softly. "You saw what none of us could. You saved her, and maybe a lot more." Kai's tail gave a small, lazy thump against the ground, as if to say, "Just doing my job." Daniel chuckled, but his smile faded into quiet thought. "You know," he murmured, staring out at the runway lights, "we see the worst of people. Sometimes lies, greed, cruelty. But today, you reminded me, there's still something pure about what we do. You don't see evil or innocence. You just act on what's right." He leaned back, eyes closing for a moment. The scent of jet fuel and rain mixed in the air. Somewhere inside the terminal, an announcement echoed faintly about a delayed flight. The world had already moved on, but Daniel couldn't stop thinking about the woman, alive because of Kai's instincts, her child safe at home, her conscience finally freed. He opened his eyes again and glanced at his partner. "You're more than a dog, Kai," he whispered. "You're a reminder that loyalty still means something in this world." Kai lifted his head, pressing it gently against Daniel's knee. The gesture said everything words couldn't. For the first time that day, Daniel smiled without tension. "Come on, buddy," he said, standing. "Let's go home." As they walked toward the patrol car under the soft hum of runway lights, Kai's tail wagged slowly, calm, steady, proud. The storm had passed, but their story, Daniel knew, was far from over.